So after I got married, which was my senior year in college, I knew then that I had to get out of college because I had some greater responsibility other than myself. But I still had my eyes kind of focused on becoming a mortician or do something else other than, it wasn't to teach school. But after returning home from college, I did not get a teaching position the first year, but I stayed around Roxboro and Person County and did some student teaching and also pick up some other jobs to help me to be able to sustain my relationship as being a married man and expecting a family. My daddy was my best mentor. Now, I'll be honest with you. And I stayed on his heels. When Daddy was doing something, I was there doing it right along with him. In places where he went, I was right there with him. Daddy used to, I know he did some construction work, and he also worked with the building supply. And then he was blessed enough to get his own start his own business. He was a taxi driver. Mm-hmm. And at that rate, he got a chance to go all over the county and to get associated with a lot of other people in the county, especially here in the city. And the family was well known. Mm-hmm. And we just, a lot of people helped us to do what we were able to accomplish, because otherwise we couldn't have done it ourselves. Mm-hmm. So Daddy was working with Roxboro Building Supply at that particular time. And I went over there one afternoon to pick him up. And one of the lady, the husband that owned the company, asked me what was I doing at that particular time. And I told her, I said, well, right now I'm just doing some sub work and some other work, whatever I can pick up odd jobs. And she asked me what did I finish school and what was my career. And I told her about teaching science and mathematics. And she said, well, I got a brother down in Board, Virginia, and they're looking for a science teacher in the high school down there. The superintendent was her brother. The associate superintendent was her brother. So after he interviewed me the next day and found out that I had the credential to become a science teacher, he asked me to sign the contract. And I did. And then I went to work at West End High School in Clarksville, Virginia, as a science and math teacher under the leadership of Ms. Dorothy Harris. And I worked there for 4 years before coming back to Person County. And I came back to Person County to Mr. Hopperfield, who was the principal at that particular time at Person County High School. And the superintendent here was at the funeral. He asked me what was I doing. He asked me, and I told him, he knew me because he knew my family. And he said, well, go over there and talk to Knight over at the high school. He said, he need a science and math teacher over there. I said, you kidding? I said, well, I got my application there at the Board of Education. He said, man, let me tell you what you do. So you go over there and talk to Knight. And if you can get Knight to want to hire you as a teacher, then you can get a job in Person County. So I got my car, went over, talked to Mr. Knight. And Mr. Knight knew me from high school because he taught me science when I was in high school. And when I told him what my credentials were and what I was teaching, and he said, you're doing just exactly what I'm looking for. I said, you kidding? He said, no. And I said, well, I talked to the superintendent, and he told me to tell you if you wanted to hire me, to call him. So Mr. Knight got on the phone, and he called the superintendent, and the superintendent spoke to me and told me, he said, well, if you want a job, stop by here and sign the contract. And I said, sign the contract? I said, I'm working in Virginia now, I'm under contract. He said, look, if you want to come home, you stop by here and sign this contract. And I thought about it. I said, well, here I am. I'm working in Virginia. We had moved over there with housekeeping, and I hadn't talked to Dorothy about it. And I said, well, I said, I guess it's easier to ask for forgiveness for it is to ask for permission. So I went over by the Board of Education here in Person County and signed the contract. And I said, Lord, I was praying all the time, Lord, I hope I'm doing the right thing because I haven't talked to her. So I signed the contract and went back to Chase City where we were staying, praying all the way because I didn't know what I was going to have to face when when I told her what had happened. So when I got there, and I guess she thought I looked kind of funny and was acting a little peculiar. And she asked me what was wrong, and I told her. And that's when we sat there and we talked about it. And she said, so you did what? I said, well, I signed a contract for go back to Roxboro. I got a teaching job over at the high school. And she wanted to know, we just started housekeeping over here. You got a good job, and people in the community like us, and we have established family here and everything. I said, yeah. I said, well, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. I said, I want to go back home.
We came through a lot of experiences where there was nobody to tell us what to do. I grew up in a big, large family. He was from a small family. And we learned how to work out our own things.
So we talked about it, went to bed that night, and I prayed about it. We still talked about it. So the next day, she asked me what was I going to do. I said, well, I done signed the contract now. I guess I'll go over here and talk to the principal and let her know what I've done. And when I went back to school and I talked to Ms. Harris, the principal at that particular time, and told her what had happened. And she congratulated me on it. She said, well, so I would like to keep you over here. I said, but if you got an opportunity to go back home now, I said, go. I said, you kidding? She said, no. She said, go. I said, well, how are you going to fill this position? She said, I'll make out. So I said, well, I had already written my letter of resignation ahead of time because after I talked to Dorothy about it and she agreed, I said, well, let me get this letter so I can kind of be ahead of myself. So she told me to take the letter over to the superintendent house. That was in the afternoon after school, and I carried it over there. And he acted so nasty about me resigning, and I had given him a 30-day notice. So I went back to the principal and I told her what had happened. And she said, look, Mr. Lunsford, don't give him a 30-day notice. Just give him a final notice and leave. I said, you kidding? She said, give him a final notice and leave. So I went back home and retyped my letter of resignation, went back over to his house, and it was raining that evening, and he would not even invite me in the house. I handed the letter through the door. And he read it. And he told me, he said, well, you'll never work in Virginia again. And when he said that, I said, good. I don't want to. So after school the next day, I got in my car and I got Dorothy and our child, and we came back to Roxboro. And I went by Mother and Dad and told what had happened and what I was doing. And so Daddy said, well, so you coming back home? I said, yes. And he just happens a lot. I said, well, yeah. He said, well, what you going to do with your house and your furniture and everything over there? He said, look, you don't worry about it. He said, don't worry about it. So at that particular time, there was a guy that lived right down below us, William Morton, that did hauling with Ambrose Lee. And he went back, Daddy went there, and he said, I worked that out for you if you're going to move back. And sure enough, it happened so, it's just everything has happened so fast. So we got everything packed up and moved back to Person County. And I went to work at Person County High School as a science and math teacher. And that was in 1963, November of 1963.